Chris has been the Senior Director of Recruitment and Admissions since 2021, where he oversees admissions for MBA and graduate finance programs, as well as supporting prospective undergraduate and specialized master's students. Prior to Duquesne, Chris spent 8 years in admissions at Wheeling Jesuit University and also served on the city's Historic Landmarks Commission. At this point, I'll turn it over to Chris, and he's going to tell you a little bit more about Duquesne.
Right. Thank you, McKenna. My name is Chris Ruyer. I'm the Senior Director of Recruitment and Admissions for the School of Business, and I'm really excited to be here with you today to talk a little bit about Duquesne's graduate business programs and how we educate business leaders to make a social impact. I have a few introductory slides that I'm going to go into very briefly so that everyone has some basic background on the Palumbo-Donahue School of Business. So I'll get started on those, and then we'll turn things over to our panelists to get started. Can everybody see my slides? Great. So Duquesne University is in downtown Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and we have about 8,500 students spanning 10 schools of study. Certainly that includes business, but it also includes medicine, health sciences, liberal arts, law, and a range of other programs. We're in R2, so there's a high level of research activity at Duquesne, and certainly, as we'll talk about a little bit later, within the School of Business specifically. And we also have an elective classification and community engagement, which I think ties into some of the research and experiential learning opportunities that business students engage in here. We're routinely ranked among the top universities in the United States, and I'll get into that a little bit more specifically for the School of Business. And we have about 280 student organizations. So certainly for those of you who are considering relocating to Pittsburgh for a graduate business degree, you'll find that there's a lot to get involved with and immerse yourself in once you're here. We are a AACSB accredited business school. We were, if memory serves me correctly, the first institution in the Pittsburgh region to earn AACSB accreditation. And only, as I'm sure you all know as BGS members, only about 6% of business schools worldwide have earned AA accreditation. So we're a rarefied company. We also at Duquesne were one of the first 100 institutions in the world to endorse the UN's Principles for Responsible Management Education. And again, that ties in with our approach to educating business leaders. As our dean would say, we bring people to Duquesne who know that being the best in the world requires that you are the best for the world. And that, again, is, I think, a thread that you're going to see through what our panelists share with you today. Our tagline at the business school is that we're in the business of difference making. That weaves its way through the curricula that we offer graduate business students across our 2 MBA programs, 5 Master of Science programs, and 5 graduate certificates. And it informs everything from how we develop new curricula to literally how we build the physical footprint of the School of Business. Our cornerstone to capstone model that you're going to hear a little bit about through today's presentation introduces you to corporate and community partners for actual professional level experiential learning. You're learning from world-class faculty who are knowledgeable and have a really rich background of professional experiences. And in the physical spaces, you're going to have access to our business institutes and centers of excellence. One of our panelists is a director for one of those centers. So the physical spaces that you learn in match what you do in the discipline or what you do in the profession. And we pair that academic excellence with a very strong student-centered environment. Through our Eugene P. Beard Center for Student Success, every graduate business student at Duquesne has access to a professional student success coach who will be able to assist you with your academic planning and be your first point of contact to any other resources or student services you need at Duquesne. You'll also have access to a career coach who advises you through basically a career and life design process. So those of you who are familiar with the process of design thinking, imagine that process being applied to your career and to your life, so that you leave Duquesne feeling very empowered to take on the next steps in your professional life. And that's earned us some nice recognition over the years. Our 1-year MBA program, which focuses on sustainable business practices, is routinely ranked among the top 10 in the world by Corporate Knights magazine. Our part-time MBA program is top 3 in a very, very competitive Pittsburgh region, and we're ranked as a top business school by U.S. News. Princeton Review also ranks us among the top 213 business schools in the world. And what I'm really excited about this year is that we are ranked number 6 in the U.S. Among greatest resources for women. That category looks at student survey results, student demographics, as well as the way that women-owned businesses are integrated throughout the curriculum. Tech Guide, which looks primarily at computer science, and data analytics programs, ranked our online and hybrid masters in analytics and information management number 6 in the US this year. And we're a military-friendly school. So if any of you are using military benefits, either as someone who's served the United States in the military or is using military benefits as a dependent, you'll be able to use those at Duquesne. I'm not going to be going into the details of every single program of study we offer this afternoon, much to the relief of our panelists, I'm sure. But this gives you a sense of what we offer. We have 2 MBA programs. We'll be talking about both today, 5 Master of Science programs and 5 certificates, all of which can actually be paired with our Flex MBA program. So we'll be able to talk a little bit more about those later, and certainly in the Q&A or the chat, I'll be happy to answer any questions you have relating to individual programs of study, or how what we're talking about today will affect your program of study at the end. So with that said, I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm going to turn things over to our panelists, Michael Corcoran, Stacey Offit, and Karen Donovan. If you could just start off by introducing yourself, talking a little bit more about your academic and professional background, and why you choose to do what you do at Duquesne. Stacey, I'll start
go
with
ahead
you.
and start.
Oh, we'll start with Karen.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Stacey.
All right. Thanks, Chris. That was a great introduction. My name is Stacey Offit. I am the director for the Center for Excellence in Entrepreneurship at Duquesne. This is my 4th year, and I am thrilled to be there. Prior to being at Duquesne, I worked with early stage startups and investment in the pre-seed stage, mostly of physical products companies in the robotics space. But my background is in art, so I'm also very active in the arts and culture space, and I mentor many creative entrepreneurs. I also serve on the board for some pretty great organizations, including an arts and culture magazine and a very, very old arts guild here in Pittsburgh. My focus at Duquesne is really helping people physical prototype their product ideas. I also run the Duquesne New Venture Challenge, which is a national competition. So our students often, it's course embedded in the classes that they take, they can enter on their own as well, but it is not a student program solely, it's a national program. So we get applications from, as far as California to New York City. We really have a good span of applicants. It's about 150 applicants this year, another record of number of applications. So our students are getting to compete on a national stage. Those are some of the various aspects of the things that I do.
Thanks, Stacey. Karen, we'll go to you next.
Hello, everyone. Greetings from a very sunny but crisp winter day in Pittsburgh. I am pleased to be here with you. As Chris said, I'm Karen Donovan. I'm the Senior Associate Dean for Academic Programs and Executive Education. And I've been at Duquesne about 11 years now. Prior to that, I was at West Virginia University, where I started my career in academia as a marketing professor, and then became department chair and then associate dean at WVU before coming to Duquesne. And I was really excited by the transition to Duquesne because that allowed me the opportunity to integrate seamlessly the student experience from a high school student applying to undergrad to graduating, possibly going on to graduate school, and then into executive education and continuous development programs that we offer. My background is really a little varied as well as like Stacey's. My undergraduate degree was actually in nursing, and I practiced as a nurse for several years before going back for my MBA in marketing and transitioning to healthcare marketing, and then back for a PhD in marketing and psychology. So that's my role here. That's a little bit of my background, and we'll get to talk a little bit more about how what I do to oversee all of the development of students and where we think things, where we focus on specific skill sets that employers are saying are very important, and students also are telling us are very important.
Thanks, Karen. Mike, you're up next.
Hey, thanks, Chris. Yeah, hi, everyone. It's great to be here. My name is Michael Corcoran, and my official title is Associate Director for the MBA Experiential Learning and Sustainability. And I'm also a BGS member, so it's great to participate in this panel discussion. My background is definitely a little different than the other panelists. It's a combination of engineering, business, sustainability, and I've been part of Duquesne just for about a year and a half. My educational background is I have a chemical engineering degree from Penn State. And then after I graduated, I got a job. And then I went back as a part-time student and got my MBA from Duquesne. So not only worked there, but I'm a proud alumni as well. I spent my entire professional career, 37 years at PPG Industries, which is headquartered here in Pittsburgh. And during that long career, I held a variety of roles. I had engineering roles, safety, environmental, and then finished up in the sustainability group, where before I retired last year, I was the global director of operational sustainability for PPG. So that involved developing strategies, projects, resources to allow our global operations, which span 70 countries, to allow them to reach our 2030 sustainability targets, which were typical things: energy efficiency, greenhouse gas emissions, waste reduction, water reduction, things like that. So I retired last year and was fortunate enough to be able to come back to Duquesne and share some of my experience and really do something I've wanted to do my whole life, which was to get into the educational field. So I now support the MBA program with experiential learning and sustainability. I also teach to project classes, including the capstone project class, as well as another class in sustainable business strategy. So I think, to me, what I wanted to do it was to talk to the students and use that experience of linking sustainability with business, that they're not separate topics, they really do go together. And so it's been fun so far, and I look forward to this session today. So back to you, Chris.
All right, thanks. And I think the one-year MBA is actually where I'd like to start. So Michael, Stacy, and Karen all teach in that program currently. And I think one of the things that's unique about the one-year MBA is that it has a sustainability focus embedded throughout the curriculum. We're actually launching a new curriculum in 2026 that I think will strengthen that in a lot of ways, and I'm very excited about that. But Mike, something I've heard you talk about is that, so there is a slice of students who enroll in the one-year MBA who go into roles as sustainability specialists, but you've talked about your interest in seeing students, no matter what their role is, go into their profession and be able to think a little bit differently than their peers. So I was wondering how you take that approach into the classroom, advising students, sharing information, teaching students, and kind of how really the three of you have seen those motivations play out for our students.
Go first?
Yes.
Sure. Yeah, that's a really good point. Because the majority of students will not go into a sustainable, 100% sustainability focused position. They might go into marketing, to finance, accounting, running a business, whatever it is. But what we talk about in my class is whatever your position is, you have a role in sustainability. That whatever decisions you're making, being a graduate of this program, my expectation is you will not just look at it from the business lens, like will you make more money, will you increase profitability, what will be your impact on sustainability? And be the person that asks those questions. Suppliers, are they reputable? Are we increasing greenhouse gas emissions? What's our impact on our customers? Is it a circular product we're making so we can bring it back? And to connect the sustainability issues with the business issues. And so don't just look at the bottom line impact when you're making a decision, but look at the sustainability impact as well. And at least the students I've taught so far, they really seem to understand that. And um, embrace that concept of they're not there just to make a profit. That's part of it, but they can do this larger role of having a positive impact in whatever job they go into.
Yeah, I think realistically, students may want a job specifically in sustainability, but might not necessarily get it through the courses that I teach, especially the consulting projects course. We really focus on influence of active listening and then showing our clients what they could do. What are the possibilities? Show them how much good they could do in the world. And so that's really the primary focus. And we worked with companies who specifically are sustainability focused, companies who are working on new technology for sorting and recycling plants, um, you know, different things like that. We've also worked with clients who don't necessarily have any obvious sustainability ties, but we're able to show them the impact that they can make in measurable ways. So that's really rewarding. And I think the students get a lot out of that. And that if they can take that with them, like Michael said, anywhere they go in any role.
I just want to build on what both of you have said, because Chris, you mentioned that the program is ranked by Corporate Knights. And I will say that consistently for the last at least 11 years that I've been here, and I think prior to that as well, we've been ranked in the top 10 of all schools in the world, and that is for integrating sustainability throughout the curriculum, as well as the impact that our students, the types of positions that they take when they go out into the world. But I think that's important because, as Mike said, many people don't necessarily have a job that has sustainability in their title. And I think that's reflective. I think our approach to educating students is reflective of what's going on in industry as well, where sustainability concepts and theories are integrated across discipline rather than just focused in on one specific course. We do try to integrate across all the disciplines and have sustainability theories and issues discussed in those courses. So next week and the week after, I'm teaching the marketing course. We are looking at marketing impacts on sustainability, and from both a theoretical standpoint in terms of the product development and things like that, but also from a philosophical standpoint in terms of marketing. So is marketing in conflict with sustainability? Like the goal to get you to buy product, is that in conflict? So lots of really cool approaches to doing that, as well as the opportunities provided to students to actually practice it and apply what they're learning through these projects.
Thank you, Karen. And we've seen some of our one-year MBA students get involved with some of our student competitions, or not student competitions, well, some often, yes, student competitions, but also some of our national events like the Duquesne New Venture Challenge. Stacy, I know we've had students who have, served as, volunteers, or they've worked with the individual companies as they progress through the Duquesne New Venture Challenge. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about the types of companies that have participated in DNVC and how our students can get involved with it.
Yeah, absolutely. So in our final stage, we usually have 5 finalists. It's a 3-stage competition for the Duquesne New Venture Challenge. And those companies have to have a Duquesne affiliate, which is a huge benefit to our students. Last year, the first place winning team happened to be a group of student alumni. But the other companies who were in the competition, we paired them with a Duquesne affiliate. That could have been, a student who, did market research for them, or, help with customer discovery or product development. So for that last stage, that last few months of the competition, we have students and faculty who get involved in with the finalists, and it gives them an opportunity. It gives the competitors a chance to build and move more quickly and grow their business in a way they might not have been able to with their current team. It opens up opportunity for early job placement, like growing their team, for our students to get a job, a high level position in a startup. So it does a lot for our students. The platform is well designed and it's purposefully designed that way.
And I know last year's winners, who you alluded to, Clean Plate Innovations, their product is intentionally geared toward reducing food waste. And
Yes.
I'm wondering if that type of entrepreneurship, using business skills to address a societal issue, I was wondering if that's something that you look for intentionally, or if the DNVC just has a tendency to attract that type of entrepreneur.
So we're industry agnostic. But I think the best entrepreneurs are solving problems. And when we think about problem solving, when we teach problem solving, and we use the lean startup methodology, um, startup founders who are actually addressing a core issue. And in Clean Plate's case, they're addressing food waste, which is a tough issue, and it's a huge global issue. And a lot of the problems that some founders of the different innovators are trying to solve is in the kind of food prep only space, whereas Clean Plate is looking at plate waste, and that data that they're collecting can address everything from procurement to that kitchen operations. It really they found a way to affect the whole supply chain of food waste. So I think, to your point, I don't think our judges are looking for specifically sustainability or social problems that are being solved, but those are certainly at the heart of, I think, the heart of what we all look for in real problem solving when it comes to new innovation.
Thanks. And I think one of the things that's interesting is that there are just so many ways that you can apply this skill set that our business students are getting, outside of traditional business lanes. And one that I think about is our Flex MBA capstone project from last year, working with, and Mike, correct me if I'm explaining it incorrectly, but working to reduce the number of derelict boats on Pennsylvania waterways. And I think, at first glance, that might seem more like a public policy type of project, but I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about that capstone and how students were able to bring their business skills to bear on that issue.
Yeah, great question. And that was my first project that I got to do, which was definitely a unique one, but very enjoyable. So yeah, in that project, our clients really were the Pennsylvania Fish and Boat Commission, as well as State Representative Anita Pullick, who's based here in Pittsburgh. And they were addressing the issue, which is a really serious issue in Pittsburgh, of abandoned boats in our waterways. And sort of the heart of that issue is there are a lot of boats in Pittsburgh because we have three rivers. And when those boats get to the point of end of life, there's no easy way to dispose of them, especially folks that don't have the resources to do it. So the easiest thing for them to do is to tow their boat someplace, tie it up in the river, and leave it and walk away. And the other issue was there was no enforcement mechanism to stop that other than a littering fine. And there was no way to pull those boats out of the river. So the representative and the Fish and Boat Commission were in the process of developing a new law that would allow it to happen. So they asked my class to develop the process. And how would you actually pull the boats out? How would you prioritize which boats to take? So they worked with local nonprofits to actually go map where all the boats were in the river, and then develop a prioritization methodology that could be used to say which boats do we want to pull out first. So part of that was, as you mentioned, the business side of it. What's the cost? So boats that are larger and sunk in the middle of the river are much more expensive to pull out than maybe a boat that's still floating on the edge of the river. And so they looked at where could you get the most bang for the buck. And then they did actually lay out the whole process. Who would pull the boats out? How would you transport them? Who would dispose of them? And what the costs were associated with that. So they did develop a process that looked at the environmental risks, but then also you have to pay for this. So how would you fund it? Where could we go to foundations? How could we raise money to fund this? And then what was the most cost-effective way of doing this project? The students absolutely loved it because we went and toured the Fish and Boat Commission and the state representative and actually saw the boats in the river that were left there. And so they knew that their work one day would end up with those boats being pulled out. And obviously the boats in there are environmental risk, safety risk, and just they're unsightly. No one wants to see an old boat floating in the river. So that really gave them a sense of purpose with this. And I'll say the good thing is the recommendations from that class are now being implemented for the Pittsburgh State Boating Council, who's been charged with implementing that regulation here in Pittsburgh because it is final. So they asked me to come and present and share all the work of that class. So they're actually using that work, which is amazing. Right? They're actually doing something that had a real positive impact on the local environment. So it was a great project. Thanks for asking about it.
And I think what's really interesting about that project is that, it's not necessarily a visible issue unless somebody spends a lot of time on waterways. It's not something that people would necessarily think about using, an MBA to address. And, I think that's what makes it compelling. And Karen, I think we have similar experiences with our analytics focused data for difference making challenge. It's open to any graduate student at Duquesne, but I would say, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's a lot of MBA and Master of Science students who get involved with that. And again, using business skills to address an issue that's sometimes hiding in plain sight. So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about some of the challenges students address in the DDMC.
Yeah, so the Data for Difference Making Challenge, as Chris said, is open to all Duquesne graduates, not graduate students, not just business students. And we do get students from a variety of different areas, like a JD student might participate in it as well. And what the challenge is always sponsored by some organization. So at one point we were sponsored by a local company, Evoqua. They've changed names. They're now Xylem, which is a water purification company. And we worked on looking at ways to remedy the PFAS in the water. We also looked at unhoused for another company. We looked at the unbanked for another company. So another institution partner, banking partner in the Pittsburgh area. So looking at ways to solve some of these bigger societal issues that aren't necessarily, quote, business related, but have an impact certainly on the businesses in which the sponsoring agencies. Lots of times, and the students are asked to come up with a hypothesis and find data, analyze that data, hence the analytics portion of it, that they can use to support their recommended solutions. And we see those solutions, again, being implemented by these companies. And I think that's a really, really cool thing with a lot of the projects that we're doing is that the students have direct impact on these organizations or on helping to solve these bigger societal issues. We actually survey our partners, our company partners, all the time to see what the impact is, and they give us, information not only in profitability impacts, but also on the human impact, how morale or retention of employees, or it could be even like lowering costs for the organization. So lots of different ways that we can look at impact, and also the sustainability dimensions of that as well. So I think that's a pretty cool thing, that you're not just doing a project and not just doing some coursework, but you're actually having an impact, a real world impact.
Thanks. And we got a question in the chat that I actually want to pivot to, that I think also addresses that real world impact. And it's looking at, do we support any entrepreneurial initiatives that would support community owned or small businesses? And I think the Small Business Development Center at Duquesne does a lot of great work with that. I know, they try to build networks among SBDC clients where they can, source products or services from each other and kind of build that network locally. But I was wondering if anybody would, want to talk a little bit about some of the work that SBDC does. I know, Stacy, for the New Venture Challenge, you work pretty closely with Rich and his team to provide services to clients. So I think that would be another way of kind of showing that impact.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So the Small Business Development Center at Duquesne is also one of our centers of excellence. And I work very closely with them, not just for the Duquesne New Venture Challenge, but we're, constantly, sending people we meet in the community and our students to the Small Business Development Center for their services. I'll also mention that Pittsburgh is a very small entrepreneurial ecosystem, or not small, but connected, very connected. And I think this speaks to what Michael was saying about partnerships. Our partnerships are very effective because we are, we're gritty, we're honest, we're close, we're, closely connected. Prior to coming to Duquesne, as I mentioned, I was at Innovation Works, which is, we worked with, one of the most active seed stage investors in the country. And if you look at the investment dollars in our region, we're really punching above our weight for our size. So, not only are we very connected and willing to help each other and willing to do the work, but we are also, we're able to facilitate those resources. The Duquesne New Venture Challenge is one of the, the most, it's the largest award, pure award, in our region, for early stage startups. You have to be under 4 years to start. So we're not looking at, established companies. We're looking at idea stage to 4 years out, companies who are pretty new. And I think our region is really set up to, even in our investor space, is really set up to support that. So, but yeah.
And I think the end result of that is that, between working, and we have a lot of graduate assistants and fellows who we place in the SBDC to work directly with clients or complete research for clients. And I think the result of all of these consulting projects that our students are participating in, competitions that our students are engaging in that are supported by corporate partners, or often, that volunteer work or graduate assistant work, again, with small businesses. We like to say that our students are client ready. And that's something that we hear a lot from our corporate partners, is that, they would feel very comfortable hiring a Duquesne graduate student and putting them directly in front of their clients from day one. So I'm going to ask our Beta Gamma Sigma colleagues to share a link. We participated in an article with AACSB recently, and by we, I mean Karen, talking about the soft skills that we strive to impart on our students. So Karen, I was wondering if you could talk about kind of how each of these individual components that we've talked about so far support essentially a strategy for educating business leaders.
Yeah. So as you said, a lot of corporate partners. We have a lot of companies that we are interfacing with all the time. Our advisory councils are made up of, executives, not only in the Pittsburgh region, but nationally. And we talk a lot, we get a lot of feedback for them on what they are seeing in, especially in terms of like with AI coming in, what's happening to their businesses, what are they looking for in new employees. And they're basically saying that how important these soft skills are. So they're looking at basically 4 different types of soft skills that they really want to have new students. They want to partner with us on developing in students so that when they have new employees, they are client ready. In other words, we can put you right in front of a client and we know that you're going to be able to be successful and make the company successful as well. So those skills are communication skills, critical thinking skills, collaboration skills, and leadership. So what that means is what we're doing a lot of is giving you lots and lots of different opportunities to practice those skills. So these are skills that we think, they're not only taught in classes, but we give you the opportunity to actually apply them. And it's just like any other skill that you're trying to develop, whether it's playing an instrument or playing a sport. The more you practice those skills, the more comfortable you become with them, the better you become at them. So, having you in front of clients on projects all the time, multiple times throughout your program of study, helps develop some of those skills. The fact that you become comfortable with, maybe there's not just one answer to a problem, and that there's lots of ways to solve the problem, and that you become comfortable with that ambiguity. So the competitions, the projects, the networking, like meet the firm nights that we have in all the different industries that we bring companies to campus, gives you that opportunity to actually hone those skills.
And I guess as a follow-up question, and I think this would be really, I think any of you or all of you would be able to answer this. So, you're often meeting students at the very beginning of our programs at orientation events. Maybe I've, brought you in to meet with a prospective student, or you've taken a Zoom meeting with a prospective student. And then all of you are seeing our graduate students in their final terms, whether through teaching capstone projects, marketing, wherever you are in that, like you're seeing our students at the end of their programs quite frequently. And I was wondering if maybe you could speak to, what does that look like? Comparing a student before they, when they've just shown up at Duquesne for their first day or for an admissions event, to what you're seeing of them from them right when they're ready to graduate.
I'm just going to say very quickly, and then I'm going to have Stacy talk about this because she actually interacts with our students doing presentation skills, and Mike sees them at the end. So I'll kick it to Stacy first. But to me, looking at it from like the 1,000-foot view, right? Not necessarily the one that's always in the weeds working with them. To me, the transformation is just incredible from where they start to where they end up. So not just in terms of their ability to present their ideas, but also just in terms of that critical thinking, where they are looking at things from different dimensions, making the business case for things, as well as considering a lot of other factors.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. The confidence is there, and it grows year over year, leaps and bounds. So I've had the privilege of having a couple students both in undergraduate school and then seeing them through grad school, and it's amazing. It's amazing to watch them build as professionals and watch them try things, and seeing them in the beginning, maybe they're hesitant or they haven't developed all the analytical skills yet, and then seeing them as they're developing through grad school and towards the end of their final semester, and watching them volunteer, step forward, get excited about things that they were hesitant about before. Yeah, it's a really incredible transformation. And I do feel like it's my privilege to get to be a part of it, and get to help support it.
Yeah, I can comment. And I do see the early presentations, and then I have them at the end for the final project course. And I definitely see that exactly what you're talking about, Stacey, that confidence and their communication skills are fairly rough at the beginning and they're struggling. But by the end, I think they just had so much repetition, and these real world projects, I think, really hone that skill. Because I think by the end they understand it's not just about making a presentation, it's about doing something. It's about implementing something, making a difference. And that's what they have to focus on. And I know in my classes, I talk to them all the time about that, because coming from the corporate world, when someone has an idea, I initially think, how do we do that? How do we actually get that in place? It's a great idea, but how do you do that? And you see the students as they work with real clients realize they need to tailor their solutions and their presentations to, let's get this done. Let's get into the real world and working. And I think you see that shift in their thinking, which is really amazing.
I'll add really quick too that we do have some students that come in and they are incredible presenters. And by the end, they're able to, you see the layers, you see them layer in like all of the influencing skills, and they're just so much more impactful, like exponentially more impactful than they were, even though they were brilliant when they started. And of course, we get students who are gifted in some of these areas, but we really see them build, and then they become complex, very capable, complex and professionals by the end.
Impactful is a good word. I think that's the word I was searching for. That's a good way to describe it.
And I'll add a follow-up question to this. So one of the things that I get to see on the admissions end, I'm working with students for our MBA programs, our Master of Science programs, students who are often undecided about what type of degree to pursue. And that often brings us graduate students with a wealth of different backgrounds. So, people who are changing careers, people who are mid or sometimes late career, looking to get a master's degree for kind of like that next stage in their career. And then more and more, we're seeing people who are very early on or enrolling in graduate school, sometimes directly after undergrad. So as you think about the types of skills that students need to have to exit their graduate degree and be prepared to make an impact either on society or on their professional roles, what are the types of skills that you see those different populations really working on strengthening while they're in school?
I can jump in and say the thing that I think is most unique about Duquesne's program is what you were saying about the life skills design and the personal and professional alignment that the students get. That to me is huge. It's like it's really important for them to be able to figure out what their values are, what they want to do, at their core, who they are, and then use that to focus and steer themselves into a career and into a professional career pathway.
Yeah, I'll echo that. I was thinking the same thing. I think they realize everyone's different. There isn't a cookie cutter person that comes out of this. Everyone has their own values, their own skills, what they're good at, and it's all valuable, right? They learn how they can apply that piece of them, that something they're passionate about, to a job. They can find that position and work on something they really, really care about. And it's okay if they're different than the student next to them, right? It's okay. They still have their own skill set, which will add a lot of value.
I think that's the other unique thing about Duquesne, that we are small. We're big enough that we have the resources, but small enough that we can do the one-on-one and be very, very intentional with each student and helping them develop that. And I also think that, that whole notion of collaboration and that whole notion of putting them into these different teams and working on the teams where we intentionally put students in teams with different skill sets so they learn how to work with people who might have very, very different backgrounds and intentionality. And they have to learn how to do that because that is what's going to be, what you're going to be doing when you are out in the real workforce.
Thank you for that. And I'll say too, from my end on the, working with prospective students, I think that makes it really fun as well that, there's not a day that goes by where every single student I've talked to has the same academic background, the same professional experiences, and the same career aspirations. So getting to see that churn of ideas and experiences, both on my side working with prospective students and then ultimately in our master's programs, I think is really, really unique and special. And it's particularly that we're able to support students from all of those different backgrounds, I think is really unique. So we've got about 15 minutes left. So I'm going to turn things over to our audience members for any questions you have either in the Q&A or the chat. I will also ask our Beta Gamma Sigma colleagues to drop two other links in the chat. One will take you to all of our graduate programs. I know we talked about some more than others today, but the experiences that we've talked about really, I think, are run in common through our master's degrees. So you'll be able to get some sense of the curriculum there. And then we are also offering an application fee waiver to any Beta Gamma Sigma members. So if you fill out that form, just indicate that you're a Beta Gamma Sigma member who attended today's presentation, and you'll receive an application fee waiver code through BusinessCast, which will save you $58 on the application process. So with those links in the chat, I think we have one question already. Looking at how we balance teaching students to use artificial intelligence with the ethical and environmental implications of using AI, which I think is a great way to start.
Yeah, I'll jump in. So one of the things, one of our centers is our VIBE Center. That's the Vera Institute for Business Ethics. And so that center does address many of the issues related to the ethical issues related to artificial intelligence as well. But I think that, Chris, you showed this slide that talks about, we understand that being the best for the world, being the best in the world means being the best for the world. And so creating ethical leaders, ethical decision makers. And I think that need to really balance all of this against each other is really important. So to balance the need for AI, it's not going away, right? So how do we balance that with the environmental issues around that is something that students are constantly thinking of and being taught to think of, because we're showing, like we talked about, previously throughout this, you're not seeing something from just one viewpoint. There's this integrative nature throughout the curriculum.
Yeah, we have courses
Anyone wants
like
to add?
oh yeah, we have courses that definitely explore AI tools, guerrilla marketing. We're always ensuring that we're like exploring the most cutting edge tools. We understand what they are and when to use them. I love that you mentioned Vibes because they have a podcast and it's specifically about the harmful side of entrepreneurship. And I use some of those podcasts in my courses because they're great material. They interview alums of Duquesne who are working and ask them how they think about their impacts. And specifically, a few of them have been asked about AI because they use machine learning in their technology that they're creating. So yeah, it's on the forefront of all of our minds, certainly, especially when we design curriculum. I've definitely adapted some of my curriculum to ensure students are getting what they need to from the course. And even in my fully online classes, we're doing things with this week we're going to do a product packaging teardown where they have to get a physical piece of product packaging and like dissect it and analyze each component. Where did it come from? What's it made of? So we're not completely steering away from AI, but we're ensuring that we're learning the cutting edge tools. Our students are learning what they need to, and we're utilizing other techniques to make sure they're getting like the core foundation of education.
Thanks. I'd be happy to take any more questions in the Q&A or in the chat. Yeah, actually, Stacey, I got a question for you directly. So you talked a little bit about kind of the layers of new skills that even very strong presenters develop while they're in the program. I'm wondering how, or the questioner is wondering how we build those skills throughout the curriculum.
Yeah, you learn a lot of different methodologies that are built in and layered throughout the coursework. And those then become this kind of invisible but very powerful skill set that you have. Obviously some of the pillars of learning that I think about are influence and entrepreneurial thinking. Embedded in my courses are the design thinking methods, the lean startup method. Some of our other courses, they take a deeper dive in like Six Sigma methodologies. So all those different kinds of analytical methodologies become powerful tools behind a language of influence and a way to help you communicate with other people in a way that, again, becomes like if you're building on great presentation skills, you're able to incorporate that language that will steer someone's decision making, in ways that maybe you didn't even know were possible to do. So yeah, it's really, again, it's about building students, meeting students where they are, and then helping scaffold their learning and build them up into the leader they want to be in the future.
I'm going to ask a follow-up question to that. So not all of our students are participating in on-campus programs. Some of our students are fully online. So, Stacey, you also teach in the Masters in Entrepreneurial Leadership, our entrepreneurship certificate program. Karen, you have the privilege of overseeing all of our graduate programs, many of which are taught on campus or fully online or in hybrid modalities. So I'm wondering, what strategies you see our faculty using to build that skill set for distance learners.
So specifically, you're talking about the skill set for collaboration and
collaboration, presentation skills,
Yeah.
getting students client ready.
Yep. So they are still, even though they are online students. Some of our programs have synchronous online offerings, so they're directly collaborating. The ones that are fully asynchronous online, in other words, you can go in and you can work at your own pace, will all have interaction with both the professor and with other students in the course, much like any other online course that you are likely to have taken. But they also are doing projects. So they're still working with clients and they're still presenting their information to clients at the same time. So that cornerstone to capstone model, it goes across curricula, whether you are in person or whether you are fully online. There's still that expectation. And as you can see, being able to communicate online is equally important as it is, communicating in a face-to-face environment.
Thank you both. Yeah, happy. Okay, we've got a couple more questions. We'll start with this one. So the Masters in Entrepreneurial Leadership is a fully online program. If a student is interested in going into a PhD focused in entrepreneurship, what sort of pathway do you see for students going from the MSEL into doctoral study?
So I'll take just a stab at this. So I think that like many doctoral programs, a master's degree is not going to be required, right? So you could go straight from an undergraduate program into a doctoral program. I think the advantage to having a master's degree first and getting a little bit of experience before going into a doctoral program is you can apply. So a master's program is going to be very much more applied. A PhD program is going to be much more theoretical. So you can then take the theory that you're learning in that PhD program. You can take those experiences and say, yeah, this is why it makes sense. This is how we did this in the real world. So I do think that a master's program, while not essential for a PhD program, does assist with, and especially if you do a master's program applied and then work in the area for a year or two or whatever before you go back for a PhD is really, really beneficial. And then you can take that back into your research as well as into your classroom experience and discussions.
Yeah, and I know for Duquesne, our dean really prioritizes industry experience when hiring faculty. So learning that applied approach and then going into a doctoral program gives you that combination that I think is really desirable for AACSB accredited schools.
Yeah, I actually have a student in one of my courses right now who is a PhD candidate. And I just talked to her on the phone yesterday. She's in North Carolina. She's not here in Pittsburgh. And we had a conversation about how her many years of industry experience is allowing her to write her dissertation pretty easily, but she's found that she's writing it in the wrong voice, but that's her main problem. She's like, I have all of this great experience and all this knowledge base to base all of this theory that I'm interested in on. And I'm just trying to get it in the right voice for, a more philosophical voice rather than a practical voice. So I think everything you said, Karen, is right on. It also, Chris and I talk about this all the time. There are a ton of resources for students that are not available to the general public. Lots of pitch competitions, lots of, these funding pools, lots of good practice scenarios. So a master's program can be a really nice, stepping stone, a really nice springboard for whatever next step that is, whether that's a PhD or, starting your own business or going into entrepreneurship, working in the corporate world.
Yeah, we've got a couple more questions in the chat. For this first one, Mike, I actually want to start with you on this, given your experiences completing your MBA as a full-time working professional, and given the typical audience for the Flex MBA. But for students who are already in the workplace, who are hearing about how we approach business education and thinking like, yeah, I want to do that. How do you see working professionals using a master's degree to drive change in their organizations or in their communities?
Yeah, it's a great question. It was a question I got quite a bit when I worked for PPG because I would get question people from all over the company wanting to do something, even though sustainability was not part of their job description. And I think part of it, I think the number one thing is really educating yourself. So understanding what sustainability means and how you can look at your job and identify opportunities. And then the other part I've always would counsel people, find those opportunities that are sort of win-win. So maybe they save money and they reduce waste. They make the product better and you can sell more and it's more sustainable. Like those are the easiest ones to start with because even if your boss doesn't care about sustainability, but you can save them a good bit of money, they'll go for it. For example, food waste. I had somebody who really wanted to reduce food waste, and I said, "Well, calculate how much you'll save by not having to buy so much food because you're using it more efficiently." And they did that calculation, and it was huge. So that project just sailed through. So you sort of have to learn how to identify opportunities and talk the right language to get that project approved and in place. That's my advice.
Right. Thanks. And I think we've time for one final question in the chat. So we do have a number of students who are looking at doctoral study after they do their master's degree. So the question is essentially like, well, what are the benefits or what are the industry options for students who want to get a terminal degree but don't necessarily want to work in academia? And I know that's something that's been a priority for doctoral programs as they look at how they advise students. And Karen, I know many of our adjunct faculty have PhDs, aren't full-time faculty, but have gone into other roles. So I was wondering if maybe you could take that one.
Sure. So I do think that the PhD program, I think, teaches you how to think about certain problems from a theoretical standpoint. So it helps you to make decisions and applied to a business situation. You can help make decisions with the background saying like, oh, this is why we would do this. This is what the research is showing. Therefore, if we make this decision, this is what we can anticipate. So we do see, people with PhDs in industry as well. I don't think it's as common. Most PhDs do stay in academia, but I do think that we do, as Chris, as you said, we do see PhDs in industries, and they're in industry, and they're typically moving up in the chain into more strategic type roles and making those, where they can apply that knowledge to those types of decisions that would be beneficial.
Now, we have a really great mix of professors of practice and academic professors at Duquesne. And I think we collaborate really well and it makes it really interesting. And we are able to bring a really cool variety of different projects and different coursework to students based on our various backgrounds. That to me was a huge reason that I joined the team. I thought that was really, really awesome that was something that was prioritized to have a mix of professors of practice and academic professors. So just a little side note.
Chris, I know we're almost out of time, but I'm just going to add this one little thing. I used to teach a class, and it was a marketing class, a marketing management class for our evening MBA students, and it was called the Prof plus Prof model, where I was the professor, and then I had a professional working in marketing also come in, and we would talk about, I would give the theory, and she would say, and this is exactly how we implement that theory in practice. This is what's going on. So it is a really cool, it's really cool when you have that ability to see it from a theoretical standpoint. Here's the applied standpoint. Here's the result of all that stuff. So.
All right. Thank you so much. And I think that's our time on the Duquesne end of things. So I really appreciate you taking the time to learn a little bit more about our approach to graduate business education at Duquesne. Certainly, if you liked what you heard, please keep an open line of communication with us. You have the application fee waiver code and some of the other links available in the chat. So I'm going to turn things over to my colleagues at BGS.
Yeah, we can wrap this up really quickly. I just want to thank everyone from Duquesne again, Chris, Karen, Michael, Stacy. We had great questions from our attendees. Also, a really good conversation was had today. As a reminder for everyone, this webinar was recorded, so you'll get a link to rewatch that in the next few days. I would say, especially by midweek, you'll get an email with that and the links that we shared today. So just thank you again, and everyone have a great rest of your day. Bye.